Welcome to Fiery Femmes, the podcast where high achieving women build wealth, redesign their careers, and create lives with real freedom. I'm Sheena, an accredited investor, former tech sales professional, and the founder of Fiery Femmes. After a decade across global SaaS, startups, and my own reinventions, I realized the most powerful thing a woman can have is optionality. So, in every episode, we explore the future of work, the psychology of wealth, and the practical strategies that help women build careers and lives that evolve as fast as they do. We're here today with Nicole Butler. She is the new head of growth for Stripe, with her at LinkedIn for a long, long time ago, in my opinion. But she's been incredible. She's such an advocate for women in tech and for femtech as well. So Femtech Australia, welcome to the show. Thank you, Sheena. Good to see you. Good to see you. And I'm really excited about this because obviously Fiery Femmes is talking about primarily health, but I'm such a strong believer that health is wealth. And especially as women, our health is just very, very different. And so super excited to talk about this with you.
Yeah.
But before we dive into all of that, what is something that is not on your LinkedIn profile?
Lately, I go through lots of different chapters of learning new things, like in my personal life. But lately, I have been an absolute AI geek, ChatGPT super user. Since it came out for the last year, I am absolutely obsessed with the power of it. I use it for every single thing in my life. One of my best tips for using ChatGPT is actually uploading every time you have a nice glass of wine that you really like. I have a separate little folder for wine. Upload a photo of it saying, this is delicious. And over the past year, it's really gotten to know my taste. So when I go to a restaurant now, I just need to take a photo of the wine list and it selects a wine for me that it knows I'm going to love. So yeah, it's been the best.
That is an amazing. I didn't even know to use as my song. When you go to a restaurant and if you didn't have ChatGPT with you, or for example, Bistecca, they don't take phones.
Yes.
What is like your go-to wine selection that you know is not going to disappoint you?
I would always go for like a Grenache, light reds, fruity, Southern Rhone, like France is usually a safe bet. But to be honest, I don't discriminate with my wine. I drink everything.
Yeah, fair enough. I was in Adelaide recently. Have you been?
Oh my God, I love Adelaide. I love Burce, McLaren Vale.
Yeah, I love it. We went there to surprise one of my best friends and they have this really cool, like, I don't think it's a bar. It's like a massive wine bar. All you can order are basically wines.
In the region.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so clever.
I'm pretty sure not just from the region, but also they have international wines as well. But it was just like such a good vibe.
Needs to get back there. It's on my list.
Yeah, definitely. And, with with that in mind, knowing what you know about tech, you've been in tech for a while as well. What are your, I guess, like hypotheses on what the next 5 to 10 years might look like?
What a great question. I think that we're already starting to see how quickly tech is changing. And for anyone that's been in this industry for 20 years or more has already seen such a massive shift. And I think the biggest thing we're going to see is like a double down of human skills. I think we're going to start to notice how important it is, not just to keep up with the tech, because that's almost impossible, but it's about keeping up with, communication skills, understanding how the tech solves problems, how people are going to be using that technology. Like the human side of technology is probably more underrated than people realize.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to get more and more prominent over the next 5 and 10 years, which is good. It's a good thing. Those skills are never wasted.
That is so interesting because the last guest that I've had, what she mentioned was empathy. That it's so much more important.
Absolutely. Like I think in technology, being a tech expert isn't where the gaps are. It's actually eliminating all the tech jargon and being able to relate to people, because the only reason we're developing all this great technology is to make people's lives easier. So how do you then communicate and allow people to find this technology useful and not intimidating? It's a real skill.
Yeah. And if they're robots and they present like robots and talk like robots, it's not going to work.
No.
Very interesting. Interesting to see what happens next I feel like, as to your point, it changes so quickly that I don't think the tech that I used in 2015, what was so impressive at the time is now it's just like, Yep, I can create that with one prompt.
Yeah. And at the time it was revolutionary,
Yep.
but now it's like second nature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. No, that's really interesting to know. Now, when we talk about like health is wealth, and this is something that I really wanted to talk to you about because it's something that you're passionate about, you've had lived experience in. Tell me about that concept and how or when did it become more important to you when it comes to like health?
Yeah. I think if you ask anybody, especially women, they've all gone through something health related in their life.
Yeah.
Maybe it's minor, maybe it's major, but women on average suffer from a lot more chronic illness than men. There's a variety of reasons for that. But really, for me, it kind of started about 3 or 4 years ago when, your body's not as resilient as it was in your 20s and you start to notice the creaks and the things that don't really serve you anymore. I was diagnosed with endometriosis stage 4. And not only was that devastating, but it was also a huge relief because it gave me such a validation for all the pain that I had been experiencing for the decade prior. So
Wow.
that on top of infertility for many years, I went through IVF. I was finally blessed with my son, but unfortunately lost him during childbirth. So all of these different things that happened to me, mental health, physical health, emotional health, really made me pause, and it kind of made you realize what are your top priorities. And I was on a really exciting career trajectory and it made me question everything. And I think if your body is struggling, your income, your career trajectory, ability to build wealth will all struggle as well. So it's not just a mindset issue, it's structural, it's biological. And I think a lot of women need that validation.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And really sorry to hear one with a loss of a child at birth too. It's devastating. And a lot of people would have experienced that, but it's so unspoken
Mm.
in workplaces and anything, even like couples
Mhm.
don't really share it either. So
Mm.
I'm really sorry to hear that. And especially knowing as well about like the journey from endometriosis, that diagnosis. How long did it take to get diagnosed?
It was honestly, I've had pain, menstrual pain for really my whole adult life since I first started menstruating as a 13-year-old.
Oh,
But like many women can probably relate to this, you often get dismissed by doctors.
yeah.
This is very normal. You're a woman. This is all part of the journey, that kind of thing. So I kind of put up with the pain for a very long time and masked it with, you know, painkillers and just kind of got on with it. But your body can't do that forever, right? You can do that when you're young and you're resilient, but you will get to a point where it catches up with you. And I think it was that conjunction in my life with the grief, the pain, the infertility, all of that combined, it forced me to start looking at my health in an entirely new way. And I realized I didn't have any of the tools or knowledge to really understand my body at all. And as someone who, is a strong advocate for learning and understanding yourself, I just found myself in an entirely new world. So I relied heavily on experts and I spent a ridiculous amount of money and time on going and finding answers to some of these things. And along that journey, I finally learned that this before. How did I not understand my menstrual cycle? How did I not understand how my hormones operated on a monthly basis? Like, there's so much. And as I spoke to women around me and friends, also started learning that they also didn't know this stuff. And as women in our 30s, I just thought, why is that? And I've kind of really it's lit a fire in me essentially to try and educate other women around what is happening in your body. If you don't know, find out, and here's how, and here's why it's going to empower you. Here's how it's going to impact your career positively. Here's how it's going to impact your wealth and your earnings, because it does directly correlate. So I think that's been a light bulb moment for me.
That's so good. I know a friend saw like a gastro person, had numerous tests, and for years,
Oh.
she had to do like the FODMAP diet,
Mm.
all the things. And she was finally diagnosed with endometriosis. And that just goes to show how little the study is on that aspect of science, of life, of biology.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned earlier that it's like stage 4, not many people might know. I know that I have female listeners, male listeners as well. What does stage 1, 2, 3, 4 endometriosis mean?
Yeah, it's really talking about the lining. So endometriosis is essentially when the endometrial lining that's in your uterus starts to grow outside of the uterus on different organs. And because it reacts to your hormones at a certain time of the month and that lining sheds, it causes pain across many organs in your abdominal cavity. So really stage 1 to 4 is really the severity of where that lining is growing and how far spread around the body it is. So for me personally, stage 4, I had it on my kidneys, on my liver, intestines. So it was really growing in many different places. And just because it's growing in many different places doesn't necessarily mean that the pain is more than someone who has a stage 1 diagnosis. Pain thresholds are different for everybody, but it's really just how much lining is growing in different parts.
Thank you for explaining. And it's insane how much time, money cost, pain cost, opportunity cost that comes along with that. And maybe because it's so invisible as well. How many people didn't know that that's happening to like their friend, their partner, their colleague, and misinterpreted or misread the room on what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women don't realize that this directly impacts your lifetime earnings.
Yeah.
Because women are already at a slight disadvantage. You know, we've got the gender pay gap in Australia, which is really sitting at around 20% at the moment. So that means women earn around $28,000 less on average than men per year. So if you think about that over like a 40-year career, that is hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost income. And that's before you factor in any health-related conditions. So women often retire with around 30% less superannuation on average than men, which is like a 60K gap at retirement.
Wait, is that including the mat leave or like just the times that women are not working?
It does, includes all of it. But I think what really surprised me was that health research shows that women on average experience chronic conditions 40% more than men. The gap isn't necessarily because women are weaker. It's structural, it's biological. You know, the female immune system is more reactive. That's how we were built for survival, right? Hormone cycling affects our mood, affects pain perception, it affects metabolism. People don't realize that hormones affect, for women, their entire body, their memory, their brain function. And I think when you're younger, you kind of put hormones into a bucket of the reproductive system. And as you get older, you realize that no, it actually controls many, many parts of the body. So yeah, I've spoken to so many women who've been on this like upward career path. I've worked with so many of them. And then health entered the picture.
Yeah.
Right. So it could be like fertility treatment, like IVF. It could be, chronic pain. It could be pregnancy. It could be burnout. So all of a sudden they start to step back temporarily from work. Maybe it's reduced hours. Maybe it's taking extended sick leave. Maybe it's actually just saying no to the promotion. They fully intend to re-enter the career at the same level once this is sorted, right? But that pause, what they don't realize, it quietly shapes their long-term earnings, their long-term income. And years later, they're still trying to regain that lost momentum, and it can be really difficult. So yeah, I think often we talk about this gap like it's just about negotiation or opportunities being passed over for men, but a huge part of it is health interruptions, compounds decade after decade.
Yeah, definitely. And it's insane how it's invisible, it's not thought about. And one thing as well, because most of the hormone studies, one, were not done properly, two, were based on men.
Yeah.
For some reason. I'm really happy that in this day and age, there's the rise of femtech, the rise of information around that. People actually take the time to track where they're at. People know what the follicular luteal phases are.
Absolutely.
And what they should avoid doing during the luteal phase as well.
Oh, it's like fascinating. This has been like probably one of my most light bulb moments and this is something relevant for every single female, working or non-working. But women are often building their careers on like a biological system that workplaces never designed for them. It's actually biology that's been ignored because that's not how careers are structured. Careers at work are often very linear. So I found probably now as I enter my late 30s, I've found that women are expected to perform their highest level professionally. It overlaps with often the most hormonally demanding phases of their life. So women typically reach like a senior leadership status between late 30s to 50s. So generally their 40s is their peak earning period, right? If they are in a corporate career. That overlaps with two really important milestones. One of those being fertility years, so pregnancy and postpartum. Not all women have children, but the second part is 100% of women will go through menopause. Almost none of those women are prepared for it because we don't talk about it, but it can begin in your early 40s just at the same time. And I call this the hormone career collision because that's exactly what it feels like for women. And I know so many women who have taken a step back, not taken that promotion because they feel like they're losing their mind, when really in reality, it's just perimenopause that's coming on and they're not necessarily getting the right support. So I think what's really sad, the health research that just came out last year shows that 1 in 10 women leave the workforce due to menopause symptoms. 1 in 4 consider leaving due to those symptoms. And the lost productivity is almost $8 billion in Australia alone in that particular age bracket. So I was talking to a friend about this recently who's going through perimenopause for the first time. She is in her mid-40s. She has a very big role. She described brain fog during presentations. She described insomnia before offsites and strategy days where she needs to be on. She talked about joint pain during like the commutes into work, the sudden anxiety about things that she never used to be anxious about. So all these things are actually hormonal transitions. But until she was told that, she just thought she was losing her skill, losing her ability. So she started to kind of step back from that, pushing for the next level, pushing for that next promotion. And I also know another woman who stepped down at 49 completely from the workforce because of these symptoms.
Yeah, wow.
And it just makes me wonder, like, how many brilliant women have left before their peak leadership years because they couldn't, it's not because they couldn't lead, but because they weren't supported hormonally.
Yes, and they didn't know. I was in this venture capital accelerator. I remembered like my persona was Lisa. She's 45. She's an executive at Google, and she's experiencing all this. And typically, what they do is that they go to the doctors, and the doctors are like, "Here's some antidepressants." And then years and years and years that happens, more symptoms happen. And there's just like this big explosion of things that's not understood, not explained, and no support. And I know that we know of perimenopause, but I wonder how many people don't.
Oh, so many. And I think that we weren't taught about this for many reasons, but there is a few things that we can do, right? And I think a friend of ours, Michelle, who's just started the House of Flow, she's an absolute inspiration, but she was talking to me recently about how she started cycle syncing. So this blew my mind. So for anyone who is unaware of what that means, it's essentially tracking your menstrual cycle to understand what days of the month coincide with different menstrual phases for you, because it can differ for different people. So she started tracking her cycle throughout the month, and she started to align to the specific weeks to optimize her strengths at that time, right? So for example, during ovulation time, roughly day 13 to 15 for most people, women's estrogen peaks, right? For the highest. And that's shown to enhance verbal skills, confidence, assertiveness, social intelligence. And so at that time, that's when she schedules all her big presentations, her salary negotiations, her pitches, any moment that requires that confidence and visibility. And then during her luteal phase, that's when the progesterone hormone peaks. And that drives a lot of calm, a lot of focus, a lot of stability. And that's a great time to kind of review things, set goals, declutter, prepare reports. And that's just optimizing how your brain is going to do its best work. This has fundamentally changed her life. I'm totally inspired. I'm totally doing that this year, and I'm going to start tracking. And I think the world of femtech, so female health technology, or technology for female health, I should say, is completely changing the game with this, because now we can actually track our cycles without having to manually log everything all the time. Like I recently got an Aura ring last year. And there are so many wearables out there. You've got your Apple Watches, you've got your Whoops, whatever it is that you want to use. These are tracking your temperature, your heart rate, potentially your mood, and different things that are happening in your body without you even thinking about it. It allows you to start looking at what are your natural patterns, and you can really get to know yourself And I fully recognize that not everyone can just align all their presentations to like a specific day of the month. I totally get that. But it's just about being aware, right? Okay, these are the days I'm probably going to be feeling a lot more inward. These are the days I'm going to be feeling more outward. Like, what can I do? What's in my control? Even if it's just in your personal life, schedule the date night around ovulation, schedule the movie night at your luteal phase, socialize more at this time, bed, popcorn, ice cream this time. So it's just getting to know yourself, and I think the reason this is so important is because if you do this well enough during your 20s and 30s, when perimenopause approaches, you're not going to be sidelined. You're going to understand that your patterns are changing and that hormonally, this is what's driving a lot of the change in your mood, in maybe how you see things, and you can get the help that you need without feeling like you're going mad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy. Not everyone knows this at all. I track mine. And like today, I was like, oh my God, like I've entered luteal phase, and I'm just like, 5
I have
events
to do this
today.
podcast.
And I was like, I have 5 events today. And then I'm like, okay, so let's have a look at the next few days, next few weeks, and make sure that like we don't do much.
Yeah.
And I have a founder friend. She's founding a retail tech platform to avoid waste. But basically, she hasn't heard about this cycle syncing thing. And I told her, I think we were talking about workouts. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do like heavy lifting today or like too much HIIT because it's like this phase of my cycle. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was just like, well, typically when you're like one menstrual cycle, menstrual days, just take a rest, chill out, maybe have a light walk. Like scientifically, your body is telling you to shut down, rest, stay at home. And the concept of that was new to her.
You know what? This is why it's so important to be talking about this stuff because there's a lot of penalties to silence. I think we've realized over the decades, women, we don't talk enough about hormones. We suffer those consequences often in silence because it's kind of been, I don't know, like
taboo. Why do I have to hide? I mean, I probably still do hide the tampons. And like, I remember it in the LinkedIn pods. Because we had like boys and girls in the team. We would like hide like the tampons inside of our sleeves and like go to the bathroom.
Yes.
It's just like, so, fair enough.
Yes.
But yeah.
And I think this is what's happening for women in this perimenopause phase because women are struggling. A lot of women for many decades, unfortunately, HRT, hormone replacement therapy, was given a really bad rap. There was one false study, turns out, that really showcased this link between HRT and breast cancer. And then all of a sudden, women were like, I'm not touching HRT. And what that meant was they were suffering for years and years and years through a huge drop in estrogen and all the issues that come with that. And they weren't substituting because they were worried about getting breast cancer. Now, this study or whatever body ended up coming out and they said, sorry, we got this wrong. But this was 20 years after the study. So we had a whole generation of women who weren't supporting themselves. And I think if we can learn anything from this, you need to do whatever it is that you need to do to really get yourself feeling like yourself again.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of women, we need to be talking about these issues because you name it, if you are in your late 40s and you mention anything to another woman about a hot flush or even just one of the, any other menopausal symptom, guaranteed you'll be able to relate to them very quickly. You go, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but we just don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, exactly. So the good thing is whoever's going to listen to this in the next few days, weeks, years, they'll know what's up. They know that's like, okay, all right, gotta think about interesting tidbit or interesting nugget that I've found out about this. And I want to like Google more about whether this is true or not. Apparently Asian women don't suffer as bad menopausal symptoms or perimenopausal symptoms.
Interesting.
And I think I have a few hypotheses or guesses as to why. One is high consumption of soy in certain cuisines, and soy related to estrogen.
Yes.
And the second one is, have you heard of the Asian squat? Most people, like most Asians, can just kind of like just sit on the floor, like no problem.
Flexible, mobile.
I'm mobile, very flexible.
Yeah.
Just like, and I got into this Googling as well as to apparently a lot Asian people don't have as like hip problems. And I think it's because of that. So two
Wow.
tidbits on perimenopausal and menopause in general. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of I lived in Hong Kong for a few years. And
Yes, you did.
I absolutely love Chinese culture. I love so much about it. And I think what's really interesting is well into older age, a lot of Chinese elderly people are always moving.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a testament to their general longevity. They tend to live longer lives. They eat whole food, fresh whole food. They're, a lot more mobile doing their Tai Chi in the parks. I love it.
So good. I love going to Asia and just seeing very calmly, no music. I don't think there's music.
No,
They
just working with the energy in nature and and what's around them and observing and being present. And it's such a beautiful practice to watch because, I mean, in Western culture, I think yoga's kind of taken the world by storm. But I think we've also come from a very overstimulated, culture where we're always on screens. We're always wanting to be extra productive. So not only are we going to have our present time, but we're also going to stretch and we're going to build resilience and we're going to do mix match of exercises in one. Whereas Tai Chi is very centering, very grounding. Yeah, I love it.
think might be a form of meditation. Need to confirm with my Chinese friends. Any Chinese audience members, please let us know. But I think it's definitely quite meditative.
Yes. Yes. And honestly, like it's important for listeners, I think, to work out what it is that works for you. Get the help you need, build sustainable habits with your health, because there is a huge, and relating to fiery femmes and obviously the goal of being financially free. I think people don't realize the financial impact that happens to women when they involuntarily downshift, I call it. So, they slowly step back from the workforce. And, that means slower salary progression, means lower bonuses, lower equity, reduced super, like all these things that impact them later in life, not to mention the actual health condition that they're dealing with. I think there's just huge lessons here for anyone who's feeling on top of the world now. How do you protect yourself in 10, 20 years' time so that you're still that mobile and, you're still able to earn when you want to earn?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how do you protect yourself to make sure that you're going to be as good, if not better, in 20 years?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who really like variety. I'm not one of those people that, okay, I'm obsessed with spin. I'm just going to spin 5 times a week. I need a real mix in what I do. Otherwise, I kind of go a bit insane. So I have a dog and I walk her almost every morning. And so that's kind of my morning exercise. I have shifted a lot of my high intensity stuff from my 20s and early 30s. And I do a lot more kind of lower intensity stuff now. I do lap swimming on a Friday with a friend, which is really lovely. So I try and incorporate exercise with social moments.
That's so good. I'm going to copy that.
Yeah, it allows you to do two at once. It's also, I find that going to the gym isn't necessarily for me, but I recognize the importance of building strength. So we try and with weights at home that we use, and I do kind of little classes with my husband in the living room. We just try and stay active in many different ways rather than just kind of one type of Pilates, like reformer Pilates or anything like that. We really try and mix it up. But that's really only 50% of it. I think it's like eating well as well. So trying to eat a lot of whole food, nutrient dense, home cooking. I think there's just so much misinformation out there about food and what's healthy, what's not healthy. Just a couple of days ago, the US has changed their food guidelines. And so, and I think that, ultimately from the limited knowledge I have in nutrition, a lot of it does look positive. It's an increase in protein and healthy fats and things. But a lot of people have found this incredibly confusing because they were taught something different 10 years ago, something different 20 years ago. So I think people need to rely on the experts, take note of actually what feels right for them, and everything in moderation is what my mum always taught me.
Absolutely. I think it's insane how carbs was basically preached as have this much, it's the best. Meat is bad.
Yeah.
Obviously, veggies are veggies is always like pretty good. But imagine how many people have diabetes now
Mm.
because of the promotion of carbs at the time.
Yes. And I think we went through this phase of also full fat's bad, makes you fat. So everything went low fat, in the 90s. And I think what a lot of people didn't realize then was they substituted that fat with added sugars, and that caused a huge epidemic in diabetes,
Yeah.
right? And now they've switched back and they said, actually, no, full cream is best. And so what I'm seeing now is a shift into protein is going down the same route, right?
Yes.
So protein we know is good for us, but a lot of marketing companies are jumping on this bandwagon. Like, oh, we've got donuts with added protein. We've got milkshakes with added protein, So I think people need to be really careful about what they fall for and really try and get as much of their nutrients and vitamins and protein and carbs and whatever from whole foods that are less processed. I think if you can not be too strict with your diet, but just have like general rules around trying to eat natural foods that come from nature as opposed to labs.
Yes.
Is probably a good rule.
100%. And I don't know where it's because it's been instilled in the workplaces where we went to as well. We're kind of that, we prefer to like cook our own meals and stuff and know that maybe more ingredients in a package is not great.
Yeah.
But I also have this just like a pattern that I see in people. If people know and love how to cook, generally they're healthier.
Yes.
And if people struggle, and I watch like the language of some people who I know, is like, I don't like cooking, I hate cooking. Almost guarantee one, they spend more on takeout.
So expensive.
Two, they generally yo-yo with diets and stuff. So Whole Foods is the best.
And I used to hate cooking. And I've forced myself to enjoy it now. Like,
how did you force yourself to enjoy cooking?
It took a couple of years, but I started to just put the extra effort in, allocate more time to cook delicious food. I think the mistake I was making was because I hated cooking, I would try and cook the most simplest thing in the quickest time possible to get the whole activity out of the way. And I never enjoyed what I was eating. It was bland or it just didn't excite me. And so I knew that I wanted to try and cook more sustainably for my life. I think the home cooking I knew was better. So I'm still a very slow cook. It takes me like a really long time to prepare dinner, which isn't ideal. I'm hoping I get quicker. But now I make sure that I get good ingredients and I take the extra time and make it extra tasty and go to the extra effort of like putting some extra, spices and stuff in. And now I really enjoy it if I've got the time.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of time. Like I enjoy cooking. But I've come to a point now that I'm like, oh my God, I just need to like put this thing in the microwave. I don't have time.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we try as much as we can to like do the bulk cooking.
Yes. And this is cyclical as well for me, like around my menstrual cycle. Like I crave different things. I am more interested in cooking versus other times of my cycle. So it's understanding your flow and actually working out where you've got the patience to cook as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm going to have a look at my Uber Eats history just to see like, when am I ordering?
Uber Eats is so expensive now.
Yeah, it is.
Compared to when it first came out. Like I ordered Thai the other night. It was almost $100 for the two of us. Like, don't know how, because we go to that same restaurant, order very similar food, and it's only like $55. So a lot of the fees and everything and service fees that get added to the Uber Eats really jumps up the price.
Yeah, definitely. I think they definitely have to, just for the cost and all that.
Yes.
We tried to pick up from our favorite pizza place, but every now and then,
some nights you just can't be.
Yeah,
it's worth every cent actually. Some nights.
Exactly. I think one time my husband was just like, let me just order Zeus. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. Because I'm like, we don't have time to go.
Oh, how good Zeus. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going back to like the times. Again, we're very fortunate, I think, to like work for companies like LinkedIn, for example. They have such good like values instilled. And good values, good culture that they really manufacture as well. How do you think that working for LinkedIn has like helped you health wise, financial wise, and also like career?
I was blown away when I first joined LinkedIn with all of the additional stuff they provided. And I remember saying to my boss, like, for example, having a gym on site.
I love that. I was so fit.
I couldn't believe that they would spend all that money, including having a trainer there full time, when it didn't necessarily relate to like the sales job I was doing. And I often asked people like, wow, like this is such a perk, And I think over the years that I worked at LinkedIn, I kind of started to realize why they do this and how health conscious everybody at LinkedIn was and how health is contagious. When half your colleagues in the office are going to the gym, every second day and you haven't, it does give you a little kick up the butt. It's like, hold on a second. Like, you've got a smoothie machine right there. No excuses. You've got a gym on site. No excuses. So I think what LinkedIn did for me was instill habits that I still to this day have utilized. And I am so grateful for that because if you think at very traditional workplaces, like maybe your big accounting firms or law practices and things like that, like it's minute by minute, you should be working. If you're on site, you should be working and it should all be about the work. And honestly, like humans don't operate like that.
Yeah.
And if you really want the best work from your people, you have to make sure that they are holistically looked after, right? Because then they're going to give you their best work.
Yeah, definitely. I distinctly remember this time I met one of my friends. She's a lawyer, and we had an in day. For context, LinkedIn have these in days where you're not really working. There's a theme around it. How can you best describe
like
in days?
no, I think you've explained it really well. Like, yeah, every month there's a theme, and really the whole idea of the day is to allow employees to step away from their everyday work and engage in that theme in some way. So, for example, Wellness Day is every September, and they might bring in Peloton for the day. That was one of the really cool ideas they had. So everyone did a Peloton class in the morning, and then we had a really healthy lunch, and there was a masseuse on site that came. So it was really educating people around wellness for that month. The next in day might be something around community, how to give back to the community. So I think what I liked about LinkedIn was it actually educated you way more outside the job than I think most companies do. I was in a sales job, but wow, I did so many other things at LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually thinking, I was like, is that why we kind of know about Whole Foods? Was it one of those in days?
Yeah, I don't know. The fact that food was always cooked for us, it was there. There was always a healthy option. I think when it came to the catering, yeah, no excuses, and everyone was grateful for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Everyone's pretty happy. And I think the thought was people who exercise, people who go to the gym, do whatever exercise that they do are high performers. They produce endorphins. They're just happy people. So it's very
totally. And I think companies are starting to clock onto this. I mean, the tech world have been doing this for a really long time because they recognize that healthy people take less sick days. They give more to their job because they're grateful. They're sharper because their minds have been fed with the right nutrition. Like there's all these very obvious health studies that have happened. My husband actually works for a company not in tech, in more of the traditional industries. But he went to a sales conference recently with all of his leaders, and they were all given Aura rings for free
God.
as a part of this conference. And the CEO had come out and said, basically, you're all in sales, you're all looking at numbers all the time. But I'm here to tell you right now that the most important numbers are your own. That's why you're all getting Aura rings today. And I want you to start tracking your own numbers, your health. Like, there's only a certain amount of years you've got on this earth and you want to live those years well. And it was, I mean, for my husband's company, who's not really in that tech world, this was amazing. So more and more companies are starting to realize that, hold on, if I keep my people happy and healthy, they can perform better.
Yeah.
It's surprising so many still haven't clocked onto this, but we're getting there.
Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting with the Aura ring. I bought mine in, was it 2020, 2021?
Oh, you've had it for ages.
But I think I didn't like the fact that I was already looking at numbers and dashboards and like my day to day. And then now like my is telling me like 50%, 45%, you better take
Oh,
a slow day today. And I'm like, but
yeah.
I feel fantastic.
Yeah, you're right. It is more numbers to look at. But what I found really interesting about the Aura Ring, I it started to show me changes in my patterns, even from a very early, like 1 month after I started using it. It started to notice that my temperature had gone up. So it was like, okay, well, you're either getting sick or something's happening. I'm like, oh, my temperature's gone up. That's interesting. And then a few other changes to my heart rate, and then it essentially predicted I was pregnant. It was right.
Oh,
I
God.
was pregnant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was one of those things you're like, wow, like this is a very powerful tool when you really do listen to the data. And it's not something you have to look at every day. I know it definitely encourages that through like, your sleep score. But actually, even if you look at the longer term patterns every month, like how you've been sleeping, what's impacted your sleep, have late night calls been impacting how you sleep, has alcohol been impacting how you sleep? It's just little nuggets of information that can help you make the right choices next time, because as you get older, those choices become easier because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth the hangover. It's not worth the lack of sleep. Everyone should be empowered with their own health data because it allows you to live a better life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can make those rules as well. Like when you can see that, like, okay, if I have a certain amount of wine, I don't sleep well. So
Mhm.
the rule is 2 wines max, or
I
just
mean,
none.
for me personally, I love wine. I
Yeah.
really enjoy wine. Like, I don't binge on it, but I do love one glass with my meals. But wow, I sleep better without wine.
Wow.
Sadly, that's going to be
Yeah.
something that I have to manage long term. Like, I really enjoy my glass of wine with dinner, but I will need to be aware that it will impact my sleep. So, knowledge is power in every sense. It doesn't mean you need to give up wine, but the awareness definitely helps. If you've got something really important the next day, maybe that's the night I skip.
Exactly. That's so good. Now, I know that. So, as we talk about using tech
Mm.
to make us aware of our bodies, the choices that we make,
Mhm.
what do you think about the future of women wellness and like the female health as well?
I think we're at a really exciting shift. Don't get me wrong, we've got a long way to go. But I think for the very first time, we're at this intersection where technology, work design, awareness are all kind of starting to align with how women live. And I think every woman can relate to this, but for decades, women's health knowledge has been like fragmented, it's been dismissed by doctors. It's been inaccessible. People haven't really understood the female body. That's very much changing. And I think that's hugely in part to this massive rise in femtech. And femtech is essentially a very new industry. And I hadn't even heard about it until a couple of years ago. It was only coined in 2021 as a term. And it's essentially relating to technology for women's health, right? Femtech for short. And it's probably one of the fastest growing areas in global health.
Wow, didn't know that.
It's projected to exceed $100 billion by 2030. And women's health research is, I think a lot of people can relate to this as well, has been underfunded. Medical studies over the past few decades have very much focused on male biology because women's bodies have been too unpredictable with hormones, too difficult to study. So they've been completely left out of studies. And what that's meant is so many of the things that we've been recommended for health have actually not been thought of with women's biology in mind. Not just health, even things like seatbelts were designed for the male biology. They're only just starting to realize now that actually for women, the seatbelts are not designed, particularly for pregnant women, are not designed with them in mind. And so, yeah, there's a whole range of things that people are now starting to consider. So I think what femtech has allowed is this rise in digital tools that has allowed women to kind of take health into their own hands, right? It's allowed women to track their cycle, track their symptoms, track their hormone patterns, and not just like on a daily basis, but a monthly basis, because women's hormones are on a 28-day cycle. Men's hormones operate on a 24-hour cycle.
How lucky.
And so that's why men find it a lot easier to build consistent daily habits, because their hormones are literally designed in a 24-hour cycle that it's much easier for them to be able to do the same thing every morning. For a woman, we're trying to live in a man's world.
Yeah.
We operate on a 28-day cycle. So there might be a week where we're performing at the same level, we're able to continue the same habits, but then hormones shift and that becomes a lot harder. Now, women often push through this. They still get up and go to the gym every day, regardless of how they feel, But I think what technology has allowed is it's starting to bring to the forefront data to support how they're feeling, bring this to doctors so that they're not so dismissed. I think there's a really interesting Australian startup called Ovum AI.
Yes. They're amazing.
Amazing. So the founder, Dr. Ariella Huffington Marks, she was a GP, and her story is really interesting. There's lots of podcasts where she shares her story, but essentially health complications for her really made her question, whether she was able to kind of continue being a doctor at such a young age. And she founded Ovum AI because she started to see how prominent it was that women were being dismissed from the medical system. And what they really needed was data to support what they were saying. So I think when women move from kind of guessing about what's happening to them to something more concrete using data, their decision-making completely shifts. And I think they feel more confident going in. So that changes how they plan their careers, how they plan their social activities, how they plan anything else in their life. So I think it's just a really positive change coming, and women should be really excited about what that means for them.
Yeah. And to highlight that, because I know that they're growing really well. I'm super excited to see what happens down the track. And I know, Nicole, that you have been working with Femtech Australia. Tell us more about Femtech Australia.
Yeah, so this started in 2025, and it really came from personal research that I was doing with my own health journey. Like I mentioned before, endometriosis, grief, infertility. I was kind of struggling with all of these things. And I started to see people like physiotherapists, female chiropractors, midwives, all these professionals that had all of this amazing knowledge that I feel like every woman needs to have. And I was just so shocked, and I felt really naive that I didn't know it myself. And so I realized that I think what women really need is a place that they can just understand the 101. And I couldn't find any information about the rise of technology. What I realized during this health journey was the fact that all these people had this knowledge over here. There was all this technology that was being developed over there, but there was no bridge. There was nothing for the average everyday woman to understand what was going on in their bodies and what was available to help them, because there's been huge advancements in this space. For example, in perimenopause, most women I speak to who are going through it have no idea what to do to help themselves. Yet there is all these options out there, but they just don't know about it.
There's just a big gap.
There's a gap, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to plug that gap. I thought I love reading about this stuff. I listen to podcasts. I read newsletters. There are some amazing women who are doing some really incredible things. And the average person does not read the amount of stuff that I read on this. So I thought, what can I do to leverage all this knowledge that I've learned from all these other women and share it with someone who's going through all the things that women go through every day, but just remove the jargon.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest issue. And when you read medical journals and all this stuff, it's like, honestly, it's a bit suffocating and very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
I started Femtech Australia with the goal to help bridge that gap, educate women around what's out there that can support them on their journey as a mother, as a woman who's going through menopause, as a woman who's suffering from chronic conditions. There is stuff happening in the world that they should get excited about. And I think they just don't know about it. So I'm here to deliver the message.
Amazing. I love it. And would you say, is there an age sort of targeted age group that you would want to reach, you would want Femtech Australia to reach?
Yeah, I would say anyone from teenage years right through to working women post-menopause. I think what surprised me most since I've started the newsletter, which is essentially just on linkedin.com, it's connected to my profile, Nicole Butler. I've been really shocked at the amount of men that have been reading this.
Yes.
And that probably surprised me the most, because my mission was essentially to educate women. But actually, my light bulb moment came when I was getting direct messages from men thanking me for educating them about menopause. And I thought, oh my God, of course, if women don't know about menopause, how on earth are their husbands, their bosses, their sons, their brothers going to know about what's happening in their bodies? So I started to realize this is actually a really good resource for men as well. So anyone who's working, I do have a focus on how to manage this at work and what you can do with your employers to make life easier. But yeah, it is for both men and women from teens and up.
Yeah, amazing. And such incredible work. I think definitely we need to overhaul the biology, human bio courses because I just feel like one, it's outdated. There's more research now about men and women's bodies.
Mm.
There's better updated research. Second thing that I was thinking this year to do is actually to link and tell my partner about my where I'm at in my cycle, just so
Yes.
that he knows, just so he's
Yes.
aware.
I mean, Michelle that we spoke about earlier, she does this. She essentially shares her menstrual cycle with her boyfriend because when he organizes date night once a month, he organizes it around ovulation time when she's at her peak, socially. So yeah, I think it's a really good point to, share this with men. It shouldn't just be a secret for women.
Yeah, exactly. And when it's like luteal phase, perfect time to get chocolate,
Movie night. Stay in.
random gifts. Yeah. Movie night. Please do not say yes to some barbecues that you didn't consult me about.
Exactly. So one of the newsletter editions I did was essentially on the menstrual cycle, and it talks about how to start considering cycle syncing. That's probably where I got the most messages from men.
Oh, amazing.
And it probably validated a lot for women as well who were thinking like, I feel so unpredictable. A lot of women say that. Like some days I feel great, and then other days I just feel so flat, and there's nothing in particular that's happened in my life that's caused this. But actually, what women need to understand is that is exactly how you were designed, in this cycle. And so lean into it, embrace it, use it as a superpower instead of feeling tied down by it. Because once you understand it, you can use it to your advantage.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as well for me now, because I'm used to before, I'm like, just like go, 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 go.
Yeah.
It gives me a reason to be like, you know what? No, like I'm shutting down for like, I don't know, just a few days. I think for me, it's like a few days that it's like, let's not do anything.
The same. I'm a Libra at heart. I'm a doer. I find it very hard to slow down and relax.
Libra vibes.
Libra. Yeah, you're a Libra?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Makes so much sense. But yeah, I think that, understanding my cycle now has really empowered me to relax and restore and use that time wisely. So yeah, for any woman who's considering doing this, you don't need necessarily special tools to be able to do it. You can actually just take note, even in your phone.
Yeah.
Just take note of when your period starts, when ovulation, how you feel it each week, because you'll be shocked at how much your hormones correlate to how you feel.
Beautiful. I'm definitely going to link that into the show notes so people can find it. And just to wrap up our episode, you've been in tech for a long time. What would you say to 20-year-olds these days?
Yeah, I would say become obsessive with upskilling yourself, but on the human stuff, and I think we mentioned this at the start of our conversation, but that doesn't necessarily mean doing short courses on everything. There's learning can come in many shapes and forms, but my biggest advice would be to spend the time to actually truly get to know yourself. What areas do you want to get better at? Identify the best way you learn and schedule time for it in whatever way. So maybe that's networking, maybe it's reading, maybe it's podcasts, but be conscious that tech will change all the time, but these human skills are for life. They're the ones that you should really be investing in. So anyone that is working in tech, be wary of that. You always feel like you're behind. There's always new tech to learn. That's okay. Everyone's in the same boat. Focus on human skills, public speaking, networking, building relationships. Like they are going to serve you for the rest of your life.
Amen. Yes, 100%. At the end of the day, humans are going to be humans for the end of time. So
yeah. And look at AI. I mean, it's already like the conversation everywhere you turn is about how AI is disrupting jobs. Is AI going to take my job? Is it going to replace me? These conversations have been going on for a very long time. They're very much ramped up now with all of these new tools coming out, but safeguard yourself and focus on the things that AI can't replace.
yeah, takeaway that I got from the guest yesterday was ChatGPT is really good at empathy. So it's
Yes.
like, yes, Nicole, you go, girl. Like, yeah, I can validate that emotion. So that's why people feel okay to share the most intimate whatever to ChatGPTs because
Yeah,
of that empathy. So it's
exactly.
crazy.
Yeah, and it's a really important skill. Like, think about how it makes you feel. Um, yeah, I think it's really underrated in every job. It doesn't matter if you're, customer facing or not. This is going to impact your personal life, your career, your relationships with your family, your friends. So yeah, it's worth it. Invest.
Amazing.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for being on the pod. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me. That was really, I really loved chatting today and I absolutely love this podcast. So yeah, keep it up.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Fiery Femmes. If this resonated, share it with a woman in your life because we rise higher when we rise together. Don't forget to follow and review. It helps more women access the tools and conversations that build wealth and confidence. For more career and financial empowerment, come hang out on Instagram and YouTube at Fiery Femmes. I'll see you in the next episode.